All right, we are now joined by a very special guest, former MLB pitcher, pitching coach, and now the COO of Grand Central Sports Management, Dave Eiland. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Justin. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah, I've really been looking forward to this one. There's so much to talk about, but I wanted to start with the work you're actually doing now over at Grand Central. Can you describe your role? I know it's COO, baseball operations. It sounds so interesting. What does a day-to-day look like for you?
Well, I guess my official title is head of baseball operations. I don't know where the COO came in, but it's just head of baseball operations. First and foremost, I'm not an agent. I'm not going to be an agent. I have no desire to be one. We have very capable people doing that. But it's something that I was approached with almost a year ago, February of 23, by Grand Central Sports president Jim Nichols. Talked to me about coming on board, doing something, and of course, I was with the Marlins at the time, and I wasn't really ready to break free and come off the field. You know, being on the field for over 30 years, it's hard just to turn around and hang the uniform up and walk away from it. But the conversation continued on through the summer, and came to some sort of agreement. Well, not some sort. We did come to an agreement. You know, by August, September, joined him in September, and it was something that I thought long and hard about because, like I said, my whole life I've been in uniform, been on the field either as a player or a coach. But this company and what they're all about was very intriguing and an offer I just couldn't turn down. From ownership to the infrastructure in place, like I said, the president of Grand Central, Jim Nichols, and his staff are really good organization, good company to be with, and one that I'm proud to be with and honored to be the head of baseball operations for them.
I love that. What was your experience like with agents and agencies when you were a player?
Well, I had three of them, and none of them really made any money off me. I can tell you that. But you know, I was with three of them. The first couple were big companies, and then the last one was Tony Giordano. He was just kind of on his own independent. He's actually with Grand Central as an agent now as well. And it was more of a smaller family-like operation. That's kind of what we're doing here too. And that's not to say we're only going to have minimal clients. You know, we're going to have as many clients as we feel we need or we can take care of. But one thing we are going to do here is get specialized treatment. Each one of our clients are going to feel like they're the most important client. None of them are going to get lost in the shuffle. And not only are we looking for good baseball players, we're looking for good people as well. So we're off to a pretty good start. We have a pretty good client list now, and that thing is going to build and grow and get better. And we're definitely moving in the right direction. Like I said, with support of ownership and Jim Nichols and his staff, we're really excited where this thing's going.
I love that. It has to be so rewarding, especially working with guys as they start their professional career. What aspects of your job do you find rewarding?
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot. You're not on the field for 30 plus years, and you don't go through some experiences. Not only myself, what I went through as a player, as a coach, maybe what I saw a teammate go through, and then coaching for all the years I coach. Watching the ups and downs of the players and really getting to know them and how they have to navigate their careers, how I had to navigate my career. And now with the knowledge and wisdom I have from all the years in uniform, what I'm really looking forward to is helping our players navigate their careers, navigate the ups and downs, getting them to the big leagues, which is very hard, obviously, as we all know, but staying there is even harder. And, I walked in those shoes as well. I've walked the floor many a night, after a bad game or a bad week or a bad month, and the weight of the world's on your shoulders. And all of a sudden that can flip right away. That can flip on a dime, and now you're going good again. So it's just helping the players navigate their careers, the highs and the lows, keep them on that even keel, keeping their head down, focusing on what they can control, and making life as easy on them as possible so they can be the best versions of themselves on the baseball field.
That's so cool. It's been great to follow along with you guys. I know you guys are crushing it over there. So, continued success in that regard. I wanted to take it back to your playing days. We talked about it just a second ago. I went back and looked. I was not around to watch you pitch, unfortunately, but it was the 80s. It was the 90s. It was these feared sluggers. It was that whole era you played in. What was it like pitching in that era?
It was tough. I mean, the big leagues are tough. regardless of what area you pitch in. I mean, you're facing as a pitcher, you're facing the best hitters in the world. You make a mistake, they make you pay. But looking back after the quote unquote steroid era and thinking about some of the things that went on, I won't mention any names. And I remember one time we were pitching on the road in Southern California. I won't mention the ballpark. I threw a backdoor slider down the way to a left-handed hitter. He lunged out and hit it, just got it with the end of the bat, and I could hear the bat crack. I started fixing the mound thing. It was a lazy fly ball to left field. All of a sudden, the crowd cheered. I looked up, and the ball went over the fence. I mean, that doesn't make much sense. I didn't really realize at the time, other man, that guy's pretty strong. But looking back on it now, I know why. So that's one example. Guys were built like linebackers. They were big, strong, fast, and but that's just the era we were in. And I never did steroids or anything like that. But I guess you could say it was a level playing field because for Major League Baseball standards anyway, it wasn't illegal. So guys weren't doing anything illegal back then. But to answer your question, it was tough. I mean, like I said, it's tough to face big league hitters in general. But when they're they have a little bit of help physically, then it makes it that much tougher, obviously.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did you enjoy the competition part of it, of facing some of these guys like a McGuire or a Juan Gonzalez? Like, did you enjoy like the mental part of that part?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's how you measure yourself, right? You measure yourself against the best. A lot of times they got me, but there's a few times I got them too. So yeah, that's what it's all about. It's the competition. I think that's any professional athlete that's in our blood. We want to compete. I mean, hell, I want to compete now. I want Grand Central Sports to be the best sports agency on the planet. And I'm going to, in the baseball department anyway, we have, not only do we have baseball, we have football and basketball as well, who's really doing well too. But I want the baseball to be, the best on the planet. So that there's competition there too. So that's never going to leave us. No matter how long we've been around or what eras we went through or anything like that, you're a competitor. I think when you wake up in the morning, that's in your blood. You go compete, no matter whether you're going fishing, you're mowing the grass, you're playing golf, or you're out trying to find players and help players be the best version of themselves. You're always out there competing.
I love that. You mentioned that you got some of these guys. I'm wondering, what's the most memorable at bat of your career? Like, who's the most memorable guy you got?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I faced them all. I faced A-Rod, then I coached him, but I faced him. I faced Jeter. I faced, Frank Thomas, George Brett, Bo Jackson, Wade Boggs, Barry Bonds, faced them all. And it wasn't really, looking back in my career, the guys that that probably hurt me the most and did damage weren't those big name guys. I think maybe I locked in a little bit more of my concentration, a little bit better against those, the big boys. Not to say they didn't do some damage against me, but I know I think probably the one that sticks out in my mind. I gave up Frank Thomas's first grand slam in the old Yankee Stadium, so I guess that's one. That's not really one I'm proud of, but I can just remember getting all the A-Rod, getting him to roll over, getting Barry Bonds to roll over a little bit, Ken Griffey to pop up to shallow left field. So I don't know if there's any memorable at bat that sticks out against some of the bigger names. But it was an honor to be there. It was a privilege to be there. I probably was never supposed to make it, but I did. I spent parts of 10 seasons there. So I'm very proud of that. But like I said, I had to scratch and claw and to get there. And every day that I spent there, it was a grind. It was a lot of hard work, but looking back on it, it wasn't a great career, but it was a career, and I was proud of it, and I'm still proud of it. So probably the coaching career was probably a little bit better for me, but being able to spend over 20 years in the big leagues combined as a player and a coach is something that nobody can ever take away from me, and I'll always have that.
Absolutely. I actually wanted to go next into your coaching career. So after playing, of course, you shifted into the next phase. I'm wondering though, was there a coach from when you were playing that like said something that really resonated with you or had like a biggest effect on you when you eventually decided to go and become a coach?
Yeah, I think, there were a few, but the one that sticks out in my mind was the late Billy Connors, he was my pitching coach for the Yankees. He was a pitching coach for several big league teams around the game for a long time. Unfortunately, Billy's no longer with us, but the one thing he always pounded in my head and instilled in me was just keep it simple. The game is complicated enough. Just keep it simple. The basics, be fundamentally sound. The basics as far as your delivery, your arm slot. Just keep things simple and don't overthink things. And once I got into coaching, that's something that I really, hammered in the heads of my players, was just to keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Don't over exaggerate it. Don't try and over manipulate the baseball. Trust your ability and trust your stuff and have confidence in yourself. But keep things simple. I mean, this is when we can talk about all the analytics and the data that's in the game now, but you're still dealing with human beings, and you just have to keep it simple and focus on what you can control. And I think that's really what Billy instilled in me at a very young age, and I tried to give that back when I was a coach as well.
It's really solid advice. Did you play for Buck Showalter back then with the Yankees?
I actually played for Buck Showalter my first year in pro ball, in A ball with the Fort Lauderdale Yankees. Then I played for him briefly when he managed the Yankees, 95 maybe. Yeah, 95. I was up and down a few times and played for Buck then. Great baseball mind. Probably one of the best in-game managers this game has known. So it was an honor to play for Buck. My first year in pro ball, he was a young manager then as well. But you could just tell he was a great baseball mind, a great strategist. And that proved to be true in the last 30 plus years for him as a manager.
Absolutely. I'm an Orioles fan. That's why I brought that up. What like in the early days of him managing, did you notice that like was so different and allowed him to be 3-time manager of the year, manage for 20 plus years?
He paid attention to detail. He didn't miss a thing. He was always thinking ahead, a very forward thinker. He stayed 2-3 innings ahead of the manager or any other dugout. A situation couldn't and didn't arise in a game that he wasn't prepared for. And you could just see that with him. Uberly prepared, paid attention to detail, and he was never caught off guard or caught by surprise with anything that happened in game.
That's the best. Yeah, I'm a huge Buck Showalter guy. What advantages and disadvantages did being a former player have on your coaching style?
I don't think there were any disadvantages. I mean, hey, listen, you learn from the people that come before you, right? I learned how to do the right things from a lot of people, but I also had a few coaches that I learned how not to do things too. But for the most part, it was a positive experience. I took a little bit away from each coach I was around, each manager I played for, teammates. You watch the game, you pay attention. The days you're not pitching, you pay attention to the game. I tried to pitch every game. The day I wasn't pitching, I tried to pitch every game right along with my teammate out there. What would I throw in this situation? How would I pitch to this hitter? How would I set this guy? Runner in scoring position, depending who was up. How would I pitch that guy? So you had to pay attention. And I wasn't the most gifted pitcher in the world, but I really paid attention. I had to work hard. I had to pay attention to detail too, and really think about the little things. Make sure my mechanics were always clean. I always repeated my arm slot. Pitch according to the score, pitch to my defense, and pitch to the situation. So I think that really benefited me when I got into the coaching side of things.
Absolutely. One thing I'm curious about when you first started as a minor league pitching coach is trying to find a balance between, I'm assuming the organization kind of has these things that like they have an idea when they take somebody in the draft or sign them that like they're trying to maybe mold them into what the organization needs. How did you kind of balance that like organizationally with also like trying to help each guy be the best version of themselves they could be?
Yeah, obviously there's a player development plan for every player, right? And you have to follow that, but you also put your own personal touch on a player. I was brought up, drafted and brought up in the Yankee system as a player, and I was brought up in the Yankee system as a coach. And like I said, I had Billy Connors of the world, I had Mark Newman, Nardi Contreras. Gosh, Bucky Dent was there. Some of the old time Yankees. I was able to be around Goose Gossage for a while. Even Whitey Ford. My first couple of years he was in spring training. Catfish Hunter. Kind of showing how old I am, dating myself there. But you were allowed then, maybe not so much now. You were allowed then. You follow the organizational plan, but you also able to put your own personal touch on guys too, staying within the realms of what the organization wants you to do. So, and like I said, I learned from a lot of great people that came before me, and I continue to learn as I move throughout my career.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from two apparel sponsors of this podcast. The first is Zero Negative. They are a brand out to inspire and empower individuals to find a positive message in everything they do every time. They promote positivity and mindfulness in all of their products. Check them out at zeronegative.com. And last but not least, Few Will Hunt. It's one of my favorite brands out there. It's a great American company out of Philadelphia, out to restore the dignity of hard work. It is by far my favorite shirt to work out in. Check them out online at fewwillhunt.com. Now back to the episode. What differences did you find between being a coach at the minor league level and the major league level in terms of like the interaction with the guys? I was reading about in the Yankees system when you were the minor league pitching coach, like, you spent a lot of time with, you worked with some of these guys that like Jabba and Phil Hughes. Like what were the differences between getting guys when they first get in the organization versus, having a veteran group at the big league level?
Well, regardless of either of those situations, you have to get to know the person. You have to get to know the player. There's an old saying: they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So you have to get them to know you have to get them to know first and foremost as people, and then you get them to know them as a player. You have to get inside their head a little bit, get inside their bodies, find out what makes them tick, how they think, how they react in certain situations. Lower leverage situation, higher leverage situations. Learn what kind of heartbeat they have. But I think first and foremost, you have to, like in anything, you have to forge a relationship with the person, and then you move on to that him as a player. And I think so that was the first step. But in the minor leagues, it's more of a development. You're trying to win games, and you're pitching and playing to win. But first and foremost, you're developing too. Now, when you get to the big leagues, it's win at all costs, right? You're chasing a W every night. In the minor leagues, you want to win because winning is part of development, but the player himself is in the developmental stage. So, you might have to go out and I might have to, dictate, okay, every time you get a one ball count on a hit or a one ball strike, you have to throw a changeup. In the big leagues, it's, you throw the kitchen sink. If you got to stand on your head and throw it between your legs to get a guy out, that's what you do. So that's the difference. Really the big difference between minor leagues and the big leagues. In minor leagues, it's more about the development of the player and finishing off his development before you send him to the big leagues. In the big leagues, it's pitching to win and win at all costs.
One thing I've always heard when it comes to that is like, you have to be a pitcher, not a thrower. I'm wondering what that phrase means to you, and like, how did you help throwers become pitchers?
Well, I mean, and now the game, it seems they're all throwers now, right? Throw as hard as you can up in the zone and spin a breaking ball in the dirt. I think, pitching is an art. It's always going to be, but I think it's kind of a lost art now with where we're at in the game. And, everybody's overwhelmed and uberly focused on velocity and spinning a breaking ball in the dirt. Again, that's why you're seeing so many injuries, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion. The art of pitching has kind of faded away right now because everybody is so consumed with velocity. But, you start with fastball command. Command your fastball to both sides of the plate. Be able to throw a breaking ball, at least one breaking ball and a changeup for strikes when you're behind in the count. Not being predictable in the location of your pitches, not being predictable in certain counts. You're not always going to throw a breaking ball 1-1. You're not always going to throw a fastball 3-1. So, it's first and foremost for me, it's command. You have to command the baseball, and you have to be able to use both sides of the plate with your fastball, and then you mix in your secondary pitches. So, for me, that's pitching. I mean, you go back and you pull up video of all the great pitchers, the Maddox, the Glavine, the Schillings, the Pettits, and on and on and on. And they pitched. They didn't throw. They pitched. And you really don't see that a whole lot now, which is a bit disturbing to me. But that's just where we're at in the game right now.
I was reading an article and it mentioned like kind of like your philosophy, and I wanted to talk more about that with you. I think it was having to do with, maybe it was when you were with the Mets, about trying to get guys to not be afraid to throw the ball inside, throw the ball up and in, just really get the hitters to back off the plate a little bit. I'm wondering if that's right, if I remember that correctly, and also just like where that philosophy was kind of honed over time. Like, how did you come? Like, was that from personal experience? Like, how did you kind of work on your philosophy pitching wise?
Personal experience, I guess how I was raised in the game. The hitter needs to fear the pitcher. The pitcher's the one with the ball. maybe now there's you really can't, you throw one inside now, the hitter backs up and he stares at the mound. The umpires warn both benches, and it kind of takes the inside part of the plate away. But you had that ball in your hand. That was a license to be a jerk, right? You can throw, you can back a guy off the plate, you can throw up under his chin. I was never a proponent of throwing at guys and hitting guys. You can ruin somebody's career and, quite frankly, ruin somebody's life if you're actually throwing at guys. But you had to pitch in. You had to let hitters know that you would come in inside off the plate, so they couldn't dive out there and get the good pitches on the outside part of the plate. Because if you just stay on the outside part of the plate, hitters are going to get up on the plate, and their first movement is going to be to step towards the plate so they can get to those outside pitches. But if they have a fear of you throwing in and in off the plate, they're not going to be very comfortable going out and getting those good pitches on the outside part of the plate.
Is a fastball up and in, you think, the most effective pitch out there?
Um, if you do it more than once, I think you have to. I think we used to talk all the time about move a hitter's feet. Just throw it in so he has to move his feet and get out of the way. Like I said, I'm not a big proponent of throwing up around the head, maybe up around the letters, up under the elbows, at the waist. We just back the hitter off the plate and make him move his feet. And they're all human beings, right? They don't want to get hit with a 90+ mile an hour fastball. It doesn't feel good. That's just human nature to get out of the way. So you have to strike fear in the hitters. That you have to let them know that you're not only going to pitch in, but you're going to pitch in off the plate.
I love that. I wanted to ask about a player I think you played with, even coach too, who was a big proponent of breaking bats, jamming guys. It was Mariano Rivera. That's just like you talk about a pitcher. Like, what was it about Mo that you noticed that allowed him to have that kind of success for so long? Like, what separated him? Was it preparation, mindset, how he took care of himself? How can you kind of sum that all up with Mo?
All of the above. I mean, he had just impeccable command. He threw one pitch. A cutter, but he could throw it anywhere he wanted, up and in, to down and away to back up and in. Backdoor the cutter to lefties. He had just his command. It was just precision. It was surgical precision where he went. And the ball had so much late movement on it, the hitters would see it in one spot, and by the time it got across the plate, it was 6 inches away of where they saw it, a foot in front of the plate. So it was command. It was command and movement with Mo. And also just, he had ice water in his veins. It was never a moment too big for him. I remember numerous times making a mound visit in big situations, not necessarily because he was struggling or he was in trouble, but maybe just, to slow the game down a little bit or talk strategy or whatnot. And he would just look you right now and goes, "I got it, boss. I got it." And it was just, he believed in himself. He was fearless, and the command, and just, we're never going to see another one like him.
That's so cool. I was reading about how he picked up the cutter. I think it came later on. I don't think he initially had that. I think it was maybe an experimental kind of working on it off to the side kind of thing. Did you encourage guys to kind of do that same kind of thing, to experiment, to try different stuff?
Well, sure. I mean, you're always trying to improve. You're always trying to better yourself. I played with Mo in the minor leagues and the big leagues a little bit. I was a teammate. He was a starter. People forget he went to the big leagues a couple different times as a starter and had to get sent back down. He finally found his niche when they put him in the bullpen to set up for John Wetland back in '95. He had a little slider as a starter, a little change up, but there really wasn't much to it, just mostly fastball. And I forget how the story goes. I wasn't with him when he picked up that cutter, but he just took his four-seam fastball and just turned his hand a little bit, boom, and there it was. The rest is history. Now, not everybody can do that. You have to have feel. You have to have talent. His delivery was rock solid. His mechanics were impeccable. Obviously, that's what direct correlation with his command. But just an uberly talented guy. And that one pitch, and like I said, I know in my lifetime I'm never going to see another one like him, and I doubt anybody else will after me.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. You work with so many legendary pitchers in the Bronx, we just talk about Mo and CeCe and Pettit, guys at the top of their games. Were they receptive to change, or were they coming to you for advice? What was the back and forth like when you have guys, deep into their major league career?
Well, I tell you what I found in coaching is all the great players want to be coached. They all want information. They want to get better. What do you got for me? What do you have? What did you see? I can say that you mentioned those three guys, CC and Andy and Mo. They wanted confirmation. Hey, what'd you see? What'd you see? How'd it look? What'd you see? And they wanted to know what you saw. They wanted to know what are you saying? What can I do to be better? You know me when I'm at my best. So, tell me what you see. And like I said, all all the great players want to be coached. They want information. They want feedback. So there was never an issue with any of those guys as far as me being a young pitching coach or me playing with Andy, me playing with Mo in the minor leagues. There was nothing about, oh, he was a teammate. We don't have to. Those guys were professional. That's why each of them have 3, 4, 5, championship rings, because they're pros. They're very, all the great ones are very coachable. Like I said, they want information. They're very respectful, not only of you as a person, you as a coach, but the position you have. So there was never an issue with any of those guys or anybody I coached for that matter. For the 11 years I was a big league pitching coach, I really didn't have a problem with anyone. I mean, sometimes there were disagreements along the way, but having a problem with a guy, I never experienced that.
That's awesome. You were a part of 2 World Series winning teams there, the Yankees and the Royals. I'm wondering though, in each of those seasons, was there a point where you could sense that something was different about this team? Like you're looking around and you're like, I think I'm feeling this.
Well, with the Yankees in 09, we didn't make, I think we won 88 or 89 games in 2008. We didn't make the playoffs, so that offseason, Cashman and his crew went out and got Sabathia, AJ Burnett and Mark Teixeira. We knew we had a good team, but we weren't really playing that well up to our talent level, I should say. I guess it was early June. We were in Atlanta for an interleague series, and we had a big meeting. Cashman flew down and met with the team. Joe met with the team. Everybody spoke, and it was like, hey, we're good. We're good. This team was assembled to win a championship. Just go out and relax and be who you are and let your natural abilities take over and trust one another. And let's turn this thing around. And we did. We were pretty much unstoppable after that. With the Royals, winning it in 15, we lost to the Giants in 7 games of the World Series the year before. Everybody showed up in spring training in 2015 with their eyes were bleeding. And it was just, we're going to win the damn thing this year. Everybody was so upset and mad, that we were 90 feet away from winning it in 14. We weren't going to be held back in 15. And we kind of went wire to wire there. I think we won 95 games. And, I don't want to say we cruised to the playoffs and World Series. Toronto gave us fits in the ALCS, and the Mets, we kind of handled them in the World Series. But what that team did, they believed in themselves and they believed in one another and they trusted one another, and they knew you're only as good as the guy next to you. And that was the approach they took. But it was just like that team wasn't going to be denied. How close they came the year before. They showed up in 15 and they just weren't going to be denied.
Dang. Those Royals teams were so much fun to watch. I had a question because Eric Hosmer just retired. And he's like one of my favorite players when he was playing. Like, what do you remember about like Hos and just like watching him for all those great years in Kansas City?
Great teammate, number one. Obviously a talented player, but a great teammate, great leader. Gamer. He showed up every day, played every day. Just a gamer. It was a bit sad for me seeing that announcement, a couple of days ago that he retired. But I mean, heck, he just shows you how fast time flies, right? But he had a great career. I mean, there's a lot of reasons we went to 2 World Series in 14 and 15 and why we won in 15. And the big reason was Eric Hosmer. Just his leadership, his stability, what he brought, the good teammate, how he brought out the best in guys around him. Just a great person, great player, great leader. But he was the only one on that team, but he was at the forefront of that.
He's the best. We actually had him on this podcast, and he talked about kind of like the Kauffman Stadium effect for how those Royals teams were built. It was like, all catered to Kauffman Stadium. It was like speedy outfielders, defense, like small ball. I'm wondering though, from the pitching side, what did that look like for you guys? Was like pitching to contact something that was like not okay because you never want to give up hits, but like what was the Kauffman Stadium effect like back then for those pitchers?
Trust your defense, pitch to contact, put the ball in play. I mean, I don't care if you're playing in Kauffman Stadium or you're playing in the new Yankee Stadium with the short porch and right, or playing in Fenway with the wall in left field. or it's you still you can't ever pitch away from contact. But we did pitch a contact to attack the zone. We knew we had a good defense. We knew the outfielders could run the ball down in the outfield. The thing was, we had a shutdown bullpen. I would challenge everybody to go back and look. We started that shutdown bullpen craze towards the end of 13 and 14 and into 15. Other teams knew if we got to the fifth inning with a lead, the game was over because you weren't going to score off our bullpen. But we weren't looking like a lot of teams now. They can't wait to get the starting pitcher out of the game so they can go to their bullpen. But Ned Yost, the manager, and I back then were like, hey, we're going to go with the starter as long as we can. We'll get him through 4. What do you think? Yeah, send him back out. Get him through 5th. Hey, what do you think? Send him back out. Every out counts. And sometimes I say, well, we get him through 5. We're in good shape. Sometimes you look up, he's into the 7th. So now we don't have to use, we only have to use maybe 2 relievers instead of 3 or 4. So that sets us up even stronger the next night. So, we had 5 guys down there that were just, they all could have been closers for a different team. And it was just a lockdown bullpen. Like I said, the psychological advantage, I think, too, over other teams, because they knew they had to get the lead by the 5th inning or the game was over.
I remember that all too well, especially the 2014 ALCS. That, as an Orioles fan, again, I still remember that bullpen. I was like, that's it. That's Greg Holland, Wade Davis, Kelvin Herrera.
Right. Luke Hochevar, yeah.
Hochevar, right. You couldn't touch those guys. So right. that was demoralizing from even a fan's perspective. We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from the official sponsor of Not For Long Media and the Breaking Bats podcast, the original Fudge Kitchen. It is a staple of the Jersey Shore with 6 locations in Cape May, Wildwood, North Wildwood, Stone Harbor, and Ocean City. The original Fudge Kitchen makes all of their fudge in-store guaranteeing a delicious product, so stop by and let them know that Not For Long Media and Breaking Bats sent you. Check them out online at fudgekitchens.com as they are shipping fudge and sweet treats all across the country. Now back to the episode. I had a question, though, because you had so much success, especially in Kansas City, with taking pitchers from other organizations who would come in, and I don't want to say revitalizing their career, because some of them had great careers before that, but just maximizing the efforts and the, getting the most out of these guys. I'm wondering, what was your process when you would get a free agent or you'd trade for somebody? You're starting fresh with a brand new guy. How did you help some of these guys get the best out of their careers?
Well, the first thing we do, a reliever really only needs 2 really good pitches, maybe 3. I'll give you a perfect example with Wade Davis. We transitioned him to the bullpen. We got him and James Shields in that trade before the 13th season. Wade was a starter. We finally shifted him to the bullpen into 13, first to 14. And we had 5 pitches. Okay, Wade, 4-seam fastball, breaking ball, and your cutter. Go get them. So what happens? You command those 3 pitches better than you did before when you had 5. Your velocity is going to tick up a few miles an hour. Get in the stretch, just slowly pitch out of the stretch. You don't need 2 deliveries with the windup in the stretch, and keep it simple and go on the attack with those 3 pitches. We did the same thing with Luke Hochevar was a starter. Switch him over to the bullpen. Get in the stretch, take your 3 best pitches, go with that, get on the attack. We got Ryan Madsen, who was a reliever his whole career. We got him. He didn't pitch for 2 or 3 years, and we got him, and he's making a comeback. Put him in the bullpen, protect him a little bit till he got his legs up underneath him a little bit and got strong, and turned him loose. So again, going back to the advice I got from Billy Connors back in 1989, keep it simple, trust your ability, trust your stuff, and that's what we did. Pitch the contact, and it works, and it works to this day.
I just thinking about those Royals teams and those Royals pitchers, a thought popped in my head again as a Royals fan, Bruce Chen. When you had Bruce Chen, was he one of the funniest people you've been around? Because I've heard that his jokes and his dad's sense of humor was unmatched.
Yeah, he was quite fun to be around. But I tell you what, we go back to what we were speaking about, a pitcher. He was the epitome of a pitcher. 84, 85 miles an hour, fastball, a couple different breaking balls, different arm angles, change up, throw any pitch at any time, commanded all of his pitches to both sides of the plate. A pitcher.
That guy was the best. I've grown up as a little kid. I was 04, 05, started watching baseball. I'm like, I love this Bruce Chen guy. That's so cool. You used the phrase, keep it simple. And I read an article about your time with the Mets and Jacob deGrom. The first year he got there, he wins a Cy Young. I'm wondering, what did keep it simple look like with deGrom when you first got to the Mets?
Well, obviously Jake is one of the most talented pitchers on the planet. When he's right and he's healthy, I mean, he's arguably probably some of the best stuff. But when I got there, his delivery was a little not quite there yet. He threw hard. He threw up in the zone. He really couldn't command the bottom of the zone really that well. Would get under his slider a little bit. He was late to his arm slot. First thing we did, we cleaned up his delivery, and he could always pitch up in the zone. But now we got him to start pitching down and away, then go up and in. He wasn't afraid to pitch inside. His secondary pitches were ridiculous with the slider at 92 to 93, the changeup. He had a really good curveball. He had a plus curveball. He never used it. Didn't have to use it. He just cleaned his delivery up. And he's such a good athlete and such good aptitude. You suggested an adjustment. Physically, he could make it. Mentally, he could make it. And then his natural ability takes over. But yeah, just, trust your stuff. Use your fastball to both sides of the plate. Use your fastball down and away to up across, mix in your secondary pitches, and go have some fun. And that's what it was.
I've always heard with him too, because he's like a Southern guy. Like, do you think keep it simple really resonated with him just from like his persona and how he operates? Like, do you think that working
Absolutely.
with him
Absolutely.
unlocked it? Yeah.
Right. Again, what I stated earlier in our conversation was told Jake, I think Jake will tell you this day, I think one of the big things that resonated with him for me was don't overcomplicate things. Now we're kind of getting into that era of the game where all this data is coming in and all this information is coming in, but don't let it muddy your mind and cloud your train of thought. We use it, and we're going to use what we need to use. We're going to throw the rest of it out, and don't overcomplicate. Don't let it overcomplicate you keeping it simple on the mound, trusting your stuff and your God-given ability.
I'm a big DeGrom guy. A lot of people are doubting him, though. He's coming back later this summer. He's coming off injury. He's in his late 30s. I mean, do you think he's going to go out there and still continue to, prove people wrong this summer?
No doubt about it. Again, being a competitor. I've been around a lot of them. I'm not going to say one. A lot of these guys that I was around the big leagues, either I coached or I was teammates. Oh, this is the best competitor I've ever seen. I don't think you can tag any one person with that, but he's right there with all those other guys. And Jake takes great pride in proving people wrong, which is a great trait to have. I would not bet against Jake DeGrom. I would not doubt him. He's hungry. I know he wants to live up to that contract he signed out there. He wasn't able to pitch in the World Series or the playoffs last year due to injury. I know he wants to get back to doing that. So I would just warn people not to doubt him. I think he's going to get back to where he was prior to the injury. And for goodness sakes, he's got a brand new elbow. So he should be fine. So I know he's probably working hard. He's chomping at the bit to get back out there and compete and to be there for his teammates. So it's going to be fun watching from afar how that goes for him.
That whole Texas team, I think Scherzer's in that same boat, late summer, kind of middle of the year return. I mean, can you imagine down the stretch? I mean, that like 1-2 of DeGrom and Scherzer. I mean, that's going to be incredible.
Yeah, like I said, it's going to be fun to watch from afar. I mean, I'm kind of enthralled with what I'm doing now, but I still I'm still a fan of the game. It's in my blood, right? I'm always going to be a baseball guy. I'm always going to be a former player, former coach. Very, very passionate about what I'm doing now, but it's going to be fun to keep an eye on teams like that. And I tell people all the time, I'm not really a fan of any one team, even in football. I'm a big football fan, not really a fan of one particular team. It's just I like watching good players compete against one another. So Texas is going to be one with the Jake and the Max thing to certainly keep an eye on.
So good. I had a couple last kind of like big picture game stuff. So as a pitching coach, you mentioned this before, like the analytics, it obviously has exploded the last couple of years. And, we've talked all about like helping guys keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate. I'm wondering, how did you help guys sift through? Because all the numbers and there's so many things available out there. Like, how did you help pitchers sift through all that and choose what to focus on?
Well, I mean, again, get to know the player. You get to know how much information do you want? What do you want? What do you need? I think I have a pretty good idea what they need or what they should have preparing themselves to go in a game. But you ask them, what do you need? How much information do you want? Some guys will go, give me everything you got. Other guys will go, I don't want anything. Or other guys will go, well, just give me whatever you think. Give me a little bit, but it's getting to know the player. I mean, Jacob DeGrom wouldn't want anything. Jerry McGuthrie in Kansas City would want everything you had. So Danny Duffy would want nothing. So you got to get to know the player, but there is valuable information out there, but that's what it is. It's just information. It's not the be all cure all. It is information. So you have to be very careful what you give them, what you don't give them, and engage the player, see what they want, how much they want. And you let them look at it all. And Some of them are going to like it and want to really take a deep dive into it, and some of them are just going to want to keep it very simple.
We've had a debate on this podcast about there's like in recent years they've like tried to rename pitches or just like come up with completely new ones. The big one is obviously the sweeper. I'm
Right.
wondering, do you believe that the sweeper is a separate pitch, and where do you kind of fall when people are trying to come up with new names for stuff?
Sweeper's a flat slider, okay, but we used to call it the frisbee. Go back and look in the late '80s, early '90s. Dave Stieb of the Blue Jays, he threw probably the best sweeper you'll ever see, but they called it the frisbee type slider. It had deception, and it has a big, it has a big lateral break to it. It's not that short darting slider that has some depth. It's a big one, but guys are really getting around the baseball now and starting it off the plate, just sweeping it across. But you used to call that just get up, get under and around your slider a little bit and make it a little bit bigger. That's what we used to call it. Just make your slider bigger. Now all of a sudden it's a sweeper. Somebody's reinventing the wheel again, right? It's a sweeper, but just get up under your slider and pull it across and make it a little bit flatter. That's what it is.
There's so many of them. Yeah. Especially for breaking balls, there's always like 8 different ways to call it. And it's always just like, I feel like that's either a curveball or a slider. I don't know how many variations there are.
I tell you, there's not a lot of true curveballs and true sliders left. I call them breaking balls. They're slurves. They're part sliders, part curveballs. They're not that 12-6 curveball or that late darting, depthy slider. It's more of a slurve, but it's effective. It's still a 2-plane pitch, and it's effective. But again, they call it tunneling. We used to call it want everything to come out of your hand looking like your fastball. And if you do that, you can call it whatever you want. You're going to have success.
Who had the best traditional curveball of all the guys that you either like played with or coached?
Oh gosh, we did. I mean, I don't know. Too many to name. I mean, DeGrom. I consider say DeGrom slider. I mean, it's 93, 94, right? Bruce Chen had a good curveball. Danny Duffy had a good curveball. I mean, the list goes on. Pettit had a good one. The list goes on and on. But it's the ones that could pitch off their fastball with it and throw it when they were behind in the count, not just up in the count. And again, being able to throw your secondary pitches in any count, especially when you're behind in the count, you're gonna have a lot of success if you're able to do that.
I love it. My last question is: last season in baseball, we saw several high-profile ejections for sticky stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I feel like that's really taken off the last couple of years. I'm wondering what's your take on all that, and also in a broader sense, why can hitters use all sorts of stuff, but pitchers can only use rosin? I've never understood that.
Good question. I've asked that myself. When pitchers should be able to use whatever the hitters can use. The hitters can use whatever they want to get a better grip on the bat. How come pitchers can't use whatever they want to get a better grip on the ball? But I do know if you have any type of really sticky substance on your hand, I don't know whether it be, call it what you want, what they call all this stuff now, but pine tar, for example, you can really get a good grip on the baseball and really spin your curveball really good and stay behind your fastball. It gives you a better grip. It doesn't make the ball move any better. I mean, that's now you're talking about spitballs, right? But all this sticky stuff makes, especially in cold weather when there's not much moisture, the ball feels real slick. You need some of that, but it helps you command the baseball better, maybe spin your breaking ball a little bit better and give you a better grip. A lot of hitters I talk to, they would rather guys use that than have a slippery ball and be able to get away from it. Now they're taking one in the ear hole. So, when they do use the sticky stuff, the hitters are a lot safer. I can tell you that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Early season, some of these outdoor like Minnesota, Detroit, like they absolutely should be using whatever it takes to make sure they don't beam it at somebody's head. Like I've never understood that.
I mean, obviously there's certain lines you don't cross, you don't use other stuff, but I think, I think they do need to come up with something. They're trying new baseballs. That didn't go over real well. But I think a lot of times you need something a little bit more than rosin. That's just my opinion. Probably never going to happen, but that's what I have on it.
Never know. They're adding and subtracting rules every year. Okay. Well, I will bring my producer Ricky back in for a couple last fun questions. Dave, this has been great, by the way. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
And Ricky.
Dave, how's it going?
Good, Ricky. How are you?
I'm good. I got to say, first off, I'm a big Mets fan. And as a Mets fan, I just want to say thank you for 2 incredible years of Jacob deGrom. Those were so fun to watch. And I'm just wondering if it was as fun to be in the dugout and kind of witness him dominate as it was as a fan to watch.
Absolutely. And not only was it fun to work with him and to watch him pitch and watch him pitch, just a good guy. He was great to work with, on his side days. In between days he's not pitching. He's going to joke around with him. Great sense of humor. Just a good man, good family man. It was a lot of fun being around Jake. Really to watch him pitch, watch him compete. Again, very coachable. Wanted information. What do you got for me to make me better? And it was just a joy for those 2 years to be around him.
Yeah, I'm sure he was pretty easy to call pitches for too. He's just dominating with everything.
Yeah, and there's other guys there. Zach Wheeler, Zach Wheeler kind of turned his career around there the second half of 2018, and now we see what he's done in Philly, which I'm sure doesn't make Mets fans, people like you, very happy to see what he's done. But there were a lot of good guys on that team, so I enjoyed my time there.
Yeah, I wanted him back, but it's not my decision to make. I guess with a similar time frame, but maybe a little bit of a sadder story. You were there kind of towards the end of the Matt Harvey run in Queens. I was kind of wondering what was that like to witness and watch, and kind of what adjustments did you try to make with him that maybe didn't?
Yeah, well, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get him back to as close as the Matt Harvey before the injuries. I mean, that's he not only did he have the Tommy John, he had the thoracic outlet syndrome. So that's it's not only is it hard to come back from one of those, but he had to come back from both of them, and he could just never regain that velocity that he had before those injuries. But he tried. He worked on it. We tried to get him to maybe change his philosophy on how we pitch. Be more of a pitch. Command your fastball a little bit better. And since you don't have the velocity, maybe pitch in a little bit more. But he was bound and determined he was going to get back to the pitcher he was before those injuries. But unfortunately, he just ran out of time there.
Yeah, it felt like towards the end, especially as a fan, he kind of just needed a fresh start. So I was happy to see that happen for him. But so now I know you talked about your agent work a little bit and how you're kind of on the agency side of the business. So with everything that's kind of going on right now with the big name free agents that still aren't signed, Snell, Montgomery, Chapman, I was wondering what your perspective on this is with Scott Boras kind of being a little bit on the agent point of view, and then also having your experience as a player and a coach.
Well, I mean, now that I'm in this business, I really feel uncomfortable talking about other agents. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm not an agent. I'm just the head of running operations part of this thing. But Scott Boras has always tried to get the absolute best contract he could for all of his players. And if that means sitting them out, into spring training or all the way through spring training or whatever the case may be, he fights hard for his players and he doesn't sign it, they don't come to an agreement on a contract until he gets what he feels right for his players. And you have to respect that. What's going on now with Snell and Montgomery and Chapman, I have no idea. I would venture to guess that they won't be out too long. I mean, regular season's a month away now. I've seen it time and time again, many times. If you don't have a full spring training, guys don't get to start off the year right, and sometimes they never gain traction, and it's a lost year. So, from a baseball perspective and a person and a coach, you hope those guys, especially the pitchers, get signed soon so they can get in camp and get themselves ready for March 28th.
Yeah. Season comes quick every year, almost a month away now. Just crazy to think about.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Also, when I was reading about you, I read somewhere that you were the body double for Kevin Costner in the 1990 film For the Love of the Game, or 1999.
Right.
I was wondering just kind of how that happened and what that was like to be, on set with such a star and that. Cool.
Well, I mean, it was after the 98 season. I'm sitting at home. I mean, obviously it was years ago. My daughters were young. I was getting them ready to go trick or treating. I got a phone call from, there's some players up there that were extras in that movie, and I guess Costner had a bad arm, had a hard time throwing, and some guys recommended me to the director and the producer. They called me up, wondered if I'd come up there, and had nothing going on. I cleared it with my daughters and my wife, and they said go ahead. So I went up to New York and was on set filming that for 3 weeks. The portion that was filmed in Yankee Stadium anyway. So I say I was his body double. I was the pitching double. I mean, anytime you saw the ball cross the plate, I probably threw that pitch because, like I said, his arm was hanging and he had a hard time throwing. His arm was injured. He had a hard time throwing the ball off the mound and in velocity on it. So I threw a lot of the pitches for him. Even though he says he threw every pitch in that movie, I can tell you, no, he didn't. But it was fun. I mean, it was fun. I mean, obviously one of one of the greatest actors in our generation, right? I mean, arguably, and John C. Reilly was up there. The late Kelly Preston was in that movie. So it was a wonderful experience. I tell you what, those were long days. 14, 15-hour days. But the one thing they can do that professional baseball players can do, they can reshoot the scene. You have do-overs, as many as you need to get it right. And obviously in baseball, we all know you don't have that luxury.
Did you get to go to the red carpet and do any of that fun stuff? Or
No, I was in when they had the premiere the next spring or summer. I was playing for Tampa Bay at the time, and I was entrenched in being the best pitcher I could be. So nah, I don't think I'm a red carpet type of guy anyway.
I'm sure it would have been fun. Okay, and then my last question. You hold a very interesting and unique accolade in the history of the MLB, being the only player to ever hit a home run in your first at bat and give up a home run in your first appearance on the mound. I was wondering if you're aware of that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm aware of it. I mean, it didn't happen in the same game. Obviously, it was back 1988. My major league debut was when Milwaukee was still in the American League, probably before you guys were born. Back in '88, the first hitter I faced was Paul Molitor. I got him to 1-2. I hung a slider. I probably should have thrown the sweeper, right? I hung the slider, hung the 1-2 slider to him in a solo home run. I only gave up one more hit the rest of that game. I came out with a 3-1 lead after 7 innings, and we ended up losing. The bullpen came in and gave up the runs, ended up losing the game. And then fast forward 4 years later, 1992, my first start was with San Diego, with the Padres at the time. My first start of the year against the Dodgers in early April. My first at bat facing Bobby Ojeda, threw me a 2-2 fastball. I knew he wasn't going to throw a curveball 2-2 to go 3-2 on a pitcher, so I was ready for a fastball, and I hit it well and went out of the park. So that was my home run.
Yeah. Did you ever get to talk a little smack to Bobby O if he was at Mets spring training?
No, I have too much respect for Bobby to do that. I mean, listen, I've given up enough home runs to the other guys, so I'm not going to talk smack to the one I hit off of somebody.
Oh, I'm sure. If it was me, I'd be screaming that from the rooftops, but I guess that's just me.
No, that's not me.
I love it. Dave, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for giving us an hour tonight. It really means a lot. And, best of luck and continued success with your work now with Grand Central Sports Management. You guys are crushing it over there. And like I said, dude, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. And thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. And gcsportsmanagement.com. Check us out. Got some good things going on there.